Welcome to Very Honored Frater BT's Esoterinerd podcast, episode 98, in which I interview Buzani Mnguni. But first, Transformations and Footnotes. This is the segment in which I read my father's book, verse by verse. This is Transformations by John Dan Reeb, Chapter 4, Verse 6. You and I, why don't we change the tapes to something much better? I mean, the tapes are already there, right? The tapes are already complete, right? Why do we need to keep running them over and over? I mean the ones we've been doing for what they call in the flesh place the last few millennia or so. Let's put one on we haven't heard for a long, long time. Maybe it's even really a new one, though you and I are pretty well certain that's impossible. The one I'm vaguely remembering will be as good as brand new, at least to those who insist upon not remembering it, even vaguely. The Flesh Place Fear Junkies will be convinced that it is brand new, and I think that it could run on the millennia hit parades a long time. Verse 7. No, no, no. Absolutely no violence. That won't be necessary. They already have that. Look deeper into the stack. Verse 8. That's better. You're getting the same one I'm getting. Actually, it's already started playing. It's called by many names. I call it getting off of belief-disbelief and not needing agreement or disagreement. The caption to the longer title is, Experience. What you've got is what you've got. Ah yes, I see that whether you've created it or found it, you've really got it. I've had the pleasure of teaching Golden Dawn magic to the members of the Gnostic Church of the Black Sun Kuho-Yu here in South Africa, as well as learning about the work that they already do. The other day I was talking to Tau Siddhartha's brother-in-law, Buzani, about the tone scale and a few other things. It was a fascinating conversation, so naturally I asked him if he would be a guest on the Esoterinerd podcast. And so, without further ado, let's get to the interview, shall we? Greetings, Frater. Welcome to the Esoterinerd podcast.
Thank you.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about the meaning of your name?
Buzani. Buzani means ask. That's Zulu.
Zulu for ask.
For ask. If you say ask, when you are talking to a couple of people and you're telling them to ask, that's why there's an N-I. It means plural.
Talking to more than one person.
Yeah, when you're telling other people and say ask in their group, you say Buzani. But if it's one, you say Buza, which means P-U-Z-A. When I'm talking to I'm saying ask, you say Buza.
Buza.
But when there's two of you, I say Buzani.
Buzani.
Yeah.
How do you interpret that as a name? I mean, how does that reflect upon your identity?
Well, African names normally have a meaning. It could be the meaning of an event when you were born, the meaning of a current event happening in the family, and then a child is born during that moment of that event happening, and then they give a name to that child.
Do you know how they arrived at that name?
I never inquired,
Interesting.
I never inquired because I only thought of inquiring, but the people I could ask were...
You could ask.
Yeah.
It's in the name.
Yeah, I could ask. They were already gone.
Oh, yeah.
So I know that my parents gave me the name Buzani, and then my grandfather gave me my name Vusumuzi. Vusa. Vusumuzi means when the home is sort of like dying, they say revive it. Revive the family. They say vusumuzi, which means revive the family.
Wow.
That was my grandfather that gave me my name. Probably there was an event, maybe the family was falling apart, and then I was born. And then he says, this one
will revive the family.
Will revive the family.
Wow.
And as to Buzani, maybe the question was, who is going to revive the family?
Huh.
You see, Buzani, maybe that's where it came from.
Did you have a question? Oh, okay. How about you? What's your name?
My name is Mora Isi.
Mora Isi.
Yes, Mora
Mora
Isi.
Isi.
Yes, it means the only son.
The only son.
Yeah.
But you're not.
Yeah.
But you were.
that
I
time.
was the firstborn son.
To the oldest son.
Yeah, I am.
And what about your last name? Or do you want to reveal?
Mnguni.
Mnguni?
Mnguni. You see, they are Mngunis.
Mm-hmm.
When you say Nguni, it's plural. And then when you say one person, is Mnguni.
Mm.
Yeah.
Does that have a meaning as well?
Well, it simply refers. If I could write it for you,
Sure.
it's like this is. You see, the Nguni. That's the people.
Oh, wow.
The people, the Nguni. The Zulus. You know the Zulus?
To revive the family, ask the people.
Yeah. You see the Zulus?
Mm-hmm.
The Zulus are Nguni. They are Nguni people.
Okay. Oh, the people.
Yeah. And then when you're referring to one, you just add an M here. Then it becomes Marcena. Mnguni.
So yours is singular,
Yes.
but your first name is plural.
My first name is plural.
It's like Elohim starts with singular and ends with plural.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
That's what it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for agreeing to be my guest on the podcast. I was fascinated, as the people who've been listening know from the previous episode I mentioned, and in other episodes, one of my dear friends and mentors was an ex-Scientologist, and he and I would go over there 3, 4, 5 times a week, and we'd talk Scientology. I never was involved with the Church of Scientology, but he was an auditor, and so he would audit me. And so a long time ago, I put the word out saying, hey, any ex-auditors, I want to interview you. And nobody responded. There were some people saying, well, I don't like Scientology, I'll be a guest. And I'm like, well, that's not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who likes the teachings, but not the org. Yeah. And so that's very specific. And so then when you and I got to talking, I was like, can I have you on the podcast? So would you mind telling us a little bit about how did you first end up interested in Scientology?
Well, that's very interesting because I was involved in a war, in Rhodesia.
You fought in the war?
Yes, during the war against colonialism. I went into the war when I was 14 years.
What year was that?
1976.
Oh, now we know how old you are.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got involved in there, and I stayed in the camps for almost 6 years. And after that, the war was over in 1980. Mugabe got
the camps.
The camps in Zambia. I was in exile in Zambia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right up next to Congo in the jungle there. And then after 5 years, the war ended. The war between Africans and the Rhodesians ended. Mugabe became president in 1980. So we all came home. And as a young man, I was very angry about many things because things don't always go according to what the politicians tell you. And you come back, you have lost almost 5 years. At the age of 14, it means I've lost the school, I've lost, and now nobody takes care of you.
Yeah.
You must fend for yourself. You must not looking around and saying, what do I do now? I'm not educated. I spent all the years in the grasslands and being eaten by mosquitoes, and now the future. So there were all those developments that are happening. When people come from the war, I know, they're very angry because they're not taken care of. The politicians are taken care of. They are getting into positions,
taking care of themselves
and so forth, and they forget about the people who fought for them.
Yeah.
So I was walking in the street, and they used to put the pamphlets around, and I think one of the girls who stayed next door to me in the place where I was staying in Pelandaba in Bulawayo.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, you know, I picked up this project talking about life improvement and stuff like that, and I went to these people and they said, I can bring a friend. Would you be interested? And I said, well, let's go and try.
Yeah.
I didn't know what Scientology was, but the word was there and I just was curious what it was. So I went there, got into a test. They were testing.
E-meter?
No.
Oh.
There's a test. You write a test of 200 questions. You're answering those questions. They are about you. They're asking about you, you know. And I wrote the test, and this girl didn't make it, so I made it.
Mm.
And then I went in, and they introduced me the first courses, you know, like study tech, you know, study technology.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first time I hear of anything like that. And I found it interesting. I found it very, very interesting because, remember, in Africa, I speak Zulu. You see, I speak my own language, but when you go to school, you start English.
Mm.
And you are struggling almost all your life to understand what is going on in education because of the language.
Mm.
You see, you speak this language at home, you go to start school at 7 years old, and then you start on a new language.
Mm.
So you're battling right
An
through.
uphill battle.
Yeah, this is an uphill because everything is in English. So you're battling with the language and with the content of whatever subject, mathematics or geography or whatever. It's all language, and you know these subjects have got different languages themselves. They are different languages themselves. So you're battling with the language. But the study technology is focused on defining the words. You see, understanding the word, not as it is used, first as a word, and then how it is used.
Mm.
As opposed to what we were taught at school, they say you will understand the definition of the word according to the context in which it is used.
Mm.
But if you don't understand the language,
Yeah.
you can't even understand the context.
Yeah.
So then here was an approach by L. Ron Hubbard to understand the word. He emphasized using the dictionary. Every time you read a sentence and you hit a word you do not fully understand, you must have a dictionary and check that word.
Mm.
You must take the simplicity, the simplest dictionary to the more complex dictionary. Then I found that interesting. Then that's what attracted me into. But it was study tech. You do these light, small courses about life and so forth, and their method of creating something out of what you understand.
Mm.
You know, you understand what the concept is, and then they say go and create it in clay. You go and create a physical thing in the
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the dolls.
like a
online.
dolls. Yeah, what the concept is. Then you create it. And it worked for me because then I realized that all the years that I was at school, I was struggling to understand exactly what was going on. And suddenly, all that I learned came back because now I'm beginning to understand the language, the roots of the words, you know. Then I learned English is made out of Latin, French, German, and Greek.
Yeah.
You know, you only discover then. But otherwise, without that approach, I wouldn't have.
It's a mess.
So as a result, most of us in Africa speak English according to the way we hear the teacher use it.
Mm.
But we never get to know the definitions because the dictionary is not entrenched in our system.
Mm.
And the only dictionary we have is the English dictionary. And I saw that in America, you have glossary for almost every subject.
Mm.
At the end, there's a glossary that defines the words that are used. That approach is not used in Africa. So most people say things they don't understand in English.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah.
So
So
that
it kind of
approach
provided
was
the necessary missing elements of
missing-
the education.
Or education, yeah, that's right. So you find people who go right up to university, and they speak English, of course,
Yeah.
but in most cases they don't really know what they are saying. Because if you were to go back to that person and say, "What do you mean? Why you mentioned this word? What does that word mean?" and people become, they get confused. They don't know what the word means. They know what they say it, but what the words in it that construct the whole statement or sentence, they can't define the word. So I found that approach by L. Ron Hubbard very interesting. So it got me into Scientology.
Why are you not currently a member?
Well, there is no Scientology around here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there is no Scientology. So
but there's the guy that runs it now, as opposed to Hubbard.
Yes, Miscavige. I don't know. I just read all the other stuff because I had a center here, and I used to go and attend my courses.
You ran the center, right?
Yeah, I ran the center. As you can see, some of the things there. I used to play the games and win as a center. So, but I used to go to Johannesburg to do my courses, different courses that I wanted to do, like business courses and the community courses. Like you see, they say the Scientology handbooks. Mostly, it carries the projects that you carry out in the community to help the community, in many ways.
For the people who can't see what we're pointing to, we're surrounded in all directions.
Yeah, you can see there is something there. You see in the shelves it says Scientology Handbook.
Oh yeah,
by L. Ron Hubbard. Yeah, so it's got a number of courses, public relations, whatever you can do, and you learn to do those things in the community. And then you have the red volumes here. They are called technical volumes. These are volumes that are used in auditing. They actually have the auditing tech. They also carry some of the educational tech, the approach, the technology of education itself.
The technical bulletins, volume 1 through 12.
Yeah, up to 12. And you have also the management volumes, volume 0 up to 7.
A lot of books.
Yeah,
a lot of Scientology books in here, and then all the CD sets.
And then you have what we call basics. This is where you start.
Oh, okay.
The first book, actually, in Scientology is this.
Dianetics?
Dianetics, the modern science of mental health. This is what introduced all these things.
Yeah.
This is the first book that L. Ron Hubbard wrote in 1950. And then it started what we know as Scientology today.
And then there's all these CDs. I noticed one called Golden Dawn.
Yes. Yeah. These are, we call them congresses. Yeah. He was offering some lectures through what he called congresses. So he was conveying his message to the followers through congresses. So these are what you'd see, these lectures. There are some lectures. There are plenty, even where Fabius live. I have boxes and boxes of them because we're building, we moved stuff in the house. So yeah, books. But generally I read. Yeah, I read. You can see there's law books, there's management books, some of which I collected in the US, and all that raw on top.
I guess what I'm asking is, for people listening, would you recommend that they run to their local Scientology center and sign up?
Well, it's a choice.
Yeah.
It's a choice because Scientology is many things. Yeah, it's many things. Some people are auditors.
Yeah.
Some people, they go there for management courses. He has an approach to management, how to design an organization or how to design any activity in order for people to work together.
Yeah.
Like components of a machine. You know how the machine, you take an engine, for instance, you put in a key and all the different parts of the engine start working together to make the car moves. So he designed, for instance, in management that people, if they are working together as a group, there are 1,000 people all together. How can you make them work together and produce one product at a given time? So he designed that sort of institutional structure and the philosophy behind in order for people to succeed as a group. So you can go in there and see that particular aspect and be interested in Scientology. There is a choice. You depend. But as you can see, he wrote quite a lot of books. You might be interested in one of those things, but because I know one of the books is problems of work. You know, the kind of the things that people face when they are at work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, problems of work. And so you can go in there and find that you have a particular area in life that you want to handle. And you go into Scientology and you get interviewed and they discover that you have a particular area that you want to handle and they channel you through that.
I hear a lot about them
Yeah.
extorting money from people and enslaving people. I just wonder if, like, can people learn it without drinking the Kool-Aid, if so to speak? That's sort of a...
Well, people go to the org
Right.
to do their training.
Yeah.
And some people buy books, go and study at home. You know, I've heard all the kind of stories that
Yeah.
people say we have never been in Scientology, but in my involvement, and I have been in Scientology for more than 30 years.
So you are today?
Sorry?
You're currently a member?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not currently a member because there's no Scientology here. But,
I see.
Yeah, so I left when I'm here and doing my own things. But otherwise, most of the stuff that I was doing, for instance, I'm working in the community, helping people like cooperatives, people who are groups who want to achieve something. Most of the technology of management is what I use because Scientology, like WISE, you know, there is an organization in the USA called World Institute of Scientology Enterprises, which actually gives Scientology business tech.
Right.
Yeah. So you can isolate that and use it to make your life.
Yeah.
Go around helping people to work together, to create an institution, write policy, write a job, you know, like a job, you know, people to work together. You need to find out what is your job and develop it. So in that technology, you learn those things. You learn to develop different jobs that connect to each other to produce a product.
Yeah.
Like a machine, like an assembly line. You know, each and every person has a specific job, but it connects to the entire system. So that's what you learn in there. But he wrote those things to apply them in his own organizations, you know, because Scientology organizations are different. They are all different institutions, and then there is the org, which is classified. There is a class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4 orgs. They all have different roles. And then you have different institutions, like the one, Mescavich is actually the chairman of board of religious technology, RTC, which is called Religious Technology Center. He's the chairperson. He's the sole person who takes care of the entire Scientology technology, so that people don't use it without getting permission from Scientology.
Right.
Yeah. But otherwise, if you see Scientology organizations around the world, they are sort of independent. They get licensed to do what they do, but sell the technology or do auditing. Auditing is a number of things. Yeah. There's a person trained to talk to you face to face. There's a person using the emitter. There's a person, you know, there's Purif. They do all sorts of things that help people. People get some experience out of it, and they go and live their life. And people have different problems like drugs. They come into Purif and they help them to get out of Purif. There is the politics of Scientology, which most people in the orgs don't even get to know. As you know, with all organizations, there is the top with its own activities, and there are people who are coming in to do things, and they get different experience.
So you've been an auditor?
I was a course supervisor. I was more into education. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you get to train as a course supervisor. They are auditors. They are course supervisors. They are like schools. You know, you have a whole entire education system going there. It's not everyone who comes there for auditing.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people come for training for this, training for that, and they are the people who run the education. They are called course supervisors. Yeah, and then you have auditors. They also get trained through that whole educational system. Yeah.
You were mentioning the other day about on the tone scale, the 1.1, was it?
Yeah, there is a tone scale, of course.
The emotional tone scale.
The emotional tone scale.
And there's the annotated emotional tone scale of 1975 with the note of mystery scale alongside. That's the one I learned on. I mean, that's the most recent one. I think everybody that's the one people think of when they think of the tone scale.
Okay. The tone scale is a very interesting thing. Oh, okay. No, I think we can do it this way. I can show it to you here. You see? This is called the chart of human evaluation. And what you see, these figures here, this is literally the tone scale from the bottom right up to the top, which is tone 40. So
it
here
doesn't go down to negative 40.
Huh?
It doesn't go down to negative 40 though.
No, there is no negative 40. It
Oh.
starts only from the negative. You see, like here, it says negative 3, negative 1, and then 0. And what do they say? Non-contact. But you come to 0.1, you see, which is complete literal acceptance. And then you go up, and you have 0.5, you have 0.1. As you descend, your conditions get worse. As you go up, your condition gets better. So it explains here. Let me start with, for instance, let's say a person who is at where is 0.00, let's say 0.1, is pretended death. Let's take B, for instance, Dianetics evaluation, which is pretended death. And if you say, you look at the behavior and physiology of a person who is at 0.1, you find that alive as an organism. Simple alive as an organism. And then if you look at his psychiatric range, they say he's psychotic, catatonic. You see? And then if you look at that person in terms of his medical range, you find that he's got chronic illness. He's chronically ill, refusing sustenance. That's a person who is at 0.1. That's the manifestation you see on a physical being who is in this level. And then you look at his emotion, the emotion, natural emotion of that person, who is his deepest apathy. He's apathetic, you know. And then you go along and you look at his affinity. Affinity is
Attraction,
Yeah,
willingness to be or to be connected
that's right.
to.
You find that he's normally in supplication, pleas for pity.
Yeah.
You see, and complete withdrawal from person or people. He's totally withdrawn. That sort of person who is here. That's his emotion. That's in terms of affinity. That person is completely withdrawn. And then you look at his sonic, you know, his relationship with sounds, and you find that he no response to sound in environment. Recall, you see, recall is off. He cannot recall sounds. Cannot just the sound happens now, and you ask him a few minutes later, he didn't hear it. You see, that's the kind of so. And then you move up. You look at a person, for instance, at 1.1.
Covert hostility.
Yeah, covert hostility. This is the Dianetic evaluation. When they evaluate that person, whether it's by a meter or any other method they are using.
Yeah.
That's what they pick up.
I remember Gordon explaining that as an auditor, if you're working with someone who's at covert hostility, it's inappropriate to come in at cheerfulness or something, because that'll send them even further down.
That's
but
right.
if you want to coax them to come up into anger.
Yeah.
So you actually want to get them to express the anger.
Exactly.
that
For
they're
instance,
holding
what is very interesting about this is that you pick up a person from here to here. In face value, in society, this person is still worse, but in Dianetic terms, there's an improvement.
Yeah. Gone from covert to overt hostility.
Yeah. He's from apathy to covert hostility. So he's got some little life. He got a bit of a boost in life.
Yeah.
He went from
From totally apathetic.
withdrawal to, to hostility,
Being
which is a
covertly.
reaction,
Yeah.
which is a reaction
Then
to
if
an
you can get them
environment.
to be angry, then they're
That's
expressing
an
it.
improvement. That's an
Yeah.
improvement, and then you can pick up to anger.
To the untrained eye, it might look like not an improvement, the opposite. They,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
went
but-
from sitting there to being angry.
To being angry,
Yeah.
and then you pick them up from apathy to anger. It's because apathy means Black Mamba can walk here, all other people will jump, and you'll just sit there and look at it.
Yeah.
He's ready to die. He's totally disconnecting from life.
Yeah.
He's not interested.
Yeah.
But if you pick them up, they are angry. At least they are reacting to something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how the tone scale work, and you can go up
From
up
anger to
to
boredom. Once
from
they get
anger
tired
to
of
boredom,
being
which is
angry.
2.5. And so if you look at their different areas in that boredom, you find that his behavior and physiology is relatively inactive but capable of action. You see? And then you look at their psychiatric range, they are normal or neurotic. You see? And then you go to medical range, you find that occasionally ill and susceptible to usual diseases. And then you look at their emotion, you find that this guy is indifference, boredom. You see?
Yeah.
And then you go on and you say affinity, neglect of person or people, withdrawal from them. You see?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that sort of thing. Recalls correct in vague impressions, mostly occluded. From things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So if you study it, it will show you
map.
get to understand human beings,
Yeah.
because you can talk to this human being, and you, with the knowledge, you can almost understand. This person is bored. This person is disconnected. Like senility. When people get older, they drop down in the tone scale until they get to 0, which is literally
Body death.
body death. 0.0, which is, and you can go down to negative. But up, they become more and more enthusiastic and more
Well, let's talk
involved.
about up since we've covered the down parts.
Yeah.
So what's above boredom?
Yeah. Boredom. Well, boredom,
When you rise up from boredom.
well, when you rise up from boredom, you go to 3.0, for instance, which is very high normal. And then if you look at that person in terms of behavior and physiology, you find that this person is capable of fair amount of action. Sports. People don't participate in sports, they go down the tone scale.
Yeah.
As they go up, that's when they get interested, you see. So, and you look at the behavior and physiology of that person at 3.4, is capable of fair amount of action. And then in its psychiatric range is none, it's high normal. Okay? And then medical range of that person at 3.0, he's resistant to infection and disease. Few psychosomatic ills. He's got...
Because a will to be healthy.
Yeah, that's right. And then you go to emotion. Their emotion, you find that mild interest, but content. They've mild interest, they're content. And then you get to their affinity, tolerance, without much outgoing action. They have some kind of acceptance of advances offered. If somebody offers an advance, there is an acceptance. Yet when they are down, they
Right.
yeah, you see. And you look at their strong sonic impressions, correct detail. That's sounds, the way they handle sounds, you see. And then if you look at their visual, their interaction with visual impressions, correct detail, many occluded areas. They still have some occluded areas with the visual. That's visual is,
Yeah.
the ability to see. Yeah, people can
Recall what they saw.
Yeah, that's right. And then you look at the somatic. Somatic is the body, but it comes from soma, which is the body. So it says somatic, correct. Many may be occluded. Receipt of present time pain average intensity. So They're able to sense pain. They're able to sense no pain. They can recall it also. Yeah, which means they are alive.
Yeah.
The body is. So if you go to speech talk, and this is where the tone scale is actually interesting, because you can listen to a person. They are so obsessed about talking about specific things.
I'm like reflecting on myself here. You guys have heard me talk. I've been hovering between anger and I get up here sometimes.
You know that sort of thing. So you can see the person is fixated in
Right.
that particular,
Maybe
because
a
they
little.
keep going back, and you can tell this person. You see, so you look at speech talk, speech listens, tentative expression of limited number of personal ideas, you know, and receives ideas and beliefs if cautiously stated. You see, this is the person at 3. But 3.0 is quite high in society. Yeah. In society, yeah, it's quite high.
Oh yeah, because society hovers somewhere around covert hostility.
Yeah. So, and then you look at their subjects' handling of written or spoken communication when acting as a relay point. You get that?
Acting as a relay point. So
If you give them a message and they pass it, yeah.
It's like teaching.
Yeah, or as a messenger. You know, they get a message now, they get a message and they have to pass it to you. How they handle that. At 3.0, you find passes communication conservative. You know, you will not pass it all wholly as it is, but you will restrict
Just the basics.
some things. Inclines towards moderate construction and creation of speech. You know, they don't want to say it all, they want to edit it.
Right.
Yeah, before they pass it on. And their reality is agreement, isn't it? Their reality in life is awareness of possible validity of different reality, but conservative agreement.
That makes sense.
Yeah. You see.
Seeing many points of view, so not wanting to commit to one of them.
Yeah, that's right. So that's a person at 3. And then their condition of track and valence. I don't know. We understand valence.
Valence.
Valence. Yeah, you call it valence. We call it valence. Valence is sort kind of an identity, isn't it? Yeah. So this person is sort of awareness of possible value. What am I saying? No. Okay. Moves easily on track in on valence. Track is something else. This is becoming technical because in Scientology, track is
It's like being present, time track motion.
Yeah. On the track is your consecutive life from birth to death. That consecutive recording. That consecutive recording. So auditing, the mechanism of auditing is that they start you from present time and move you backwards. You are moving on your track backwards.
So like if you have some kind of engram, you want to find the earlier similar and get all the way back to the implant.
Yeah, that's right. You're going back until you hit an engram, because we can ask you a question from present time. What did you eat today?
Oh,
I
I had a banana and I had a salad at the restaurant.
That's right. And how did they taste? How did the food taste?
It's really good.
Yeah. You see, how was the waiter when you?
It was not the waiter that I was hoping it was.
You see, so when they move you on that is track, because you already had a consecutive recordings.
Yeah.
Of time, of now. These are consecutive recordings of now in your lifetime. So in auditing, they put you on track backwards. And then you move along that track. So when they talk about track, they're actually talking about you moving on that track going backwards. And you are hitting your painful moments. And those painful moments are what constitutes your engrams.
Right.
Because pain is understood in Scientology, in Dianetics, as only recording in the subconscious mind, which is what we call the reactive mind in Dianetics. it doesn't record in your consciousness, which is your analytical mind. The mind
bypasses it.
It bypasses it.
Through
What
pain and
happens
unconsciousness.
when you say unconscious? It means unattained. Unattained. It's an engineering word which means shutting off the analytical mind, and then anything that happens during that moment gets recorded in your reactive mind, which is the subconscious mind. So, record of a living organism is there. It never gets lost. It is not only available. When he was evaluating the consciousness of a person, he found there was a recording and a gap, and then a recording and a gap. So all those places where nothing was recorded, it was during moments of pain, partially or completely. In other words, if you had anesthetic, for instance, you're in hospital and you're in anesthetic, you have a total shutdown on your analytical mind, so there's nothing.
Right.
But there is a comparative record below, which is not as well organized in terms of time and sequence as it is in your conscious mind. The bottom one is random, and as a result, when it interferes with your consciousness, it brings irrationality, because it reacts to things.
And then you get an overt.
You get an overt. For instance, you could smell anesthetic and start reasoning in a very irrational way.
Yeah.
And then, because the analytical mind was given, it was almost like it's given a command to take care of the organism and serve the organism. It tends to come in and justify any irrationality.
The overt motivator.
Yeah, overt motivator. It comes and justify, because then people say, what? You're asking yourself, what the hell? You are reacting to something which
Why
is
did
irrational.
I just do that? Oh, it must have been because of
It must have
this.
been, you are justifying, but that's the analytical mind justifying. But the conscious mind doesn't reason. It's simple.
Yeah.
You see,
Yeah.
somebody can poke you and you just turn around and just hit them
Yeah.
to death, and they say why. Then your analytical mind justifies why you had to do it. I mean, look at psychotics. They go shooting people. They have a reason why they are shooting, but it's not them. It's actually, you see, it's their subconscious mind because of the engrams. So,
And the auditor can take you all the way back to that engram.
all the way back, and how you get rid of them is simple going through
As
that
is.
incident and recalling it. When you recall it, it becomes available in your analytical mind, and then it takes away the power of the engram. And then they say you are clear when you no longer have all the recording of the subconscious mind, which happened at a time when your life was not in focus, because the engram takes place where there is no volition. You have no choice. You are lying there helpless. Everything being said, sounds that are happening, are all recording. But they are not recording in your analytical mind. They are recording in your reactive mind, which is the subconscious mind. So when you wake up, all that record is not there. And therefore you go on in life with that gap. It's like a bubble. And it already interferes with your rationality. Because every time you come to a point where there is some kind of a similarity with the environment, when you got that engram, then the engram gets activated. You can almost react to anything, any environment you go, and then you're almost crazy, because it's not your choice, but it is stimulus response. It is not a rational, it's a stimulus response. So that's the approach of Dianetics.
A=A=A.
A equals, that's right. When you start counting A is equal to A, it's not a rational thing.
Right.
It's because the environment you are in is full of those stimulators.
Yeah.
So you're now reacting. It's your subconscious mind reacting to them. But if you remove that person and take them to a totally different environment, they no longer have re-stimulators.
Africa.
Yes.
It's working a bit for me.
Yeah. You see, you come here and then nothing. You can stay here forever.
Yeah.
You'll never be re-stimulated by things so you become rational.
Right.
Yeah. You become
That's
totally
what's happening
rational.
to me. Because I was in the same house for like 30 years and I couldn't move forward. I just, the best I could do is stare at my phone for escape,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's in short. That's how the tone scale works, and that's Dianetics.
Yeah.
That is Dianetics. So that is part of Scientology, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
You want to know how human beings function, and it can take you to Scientology.
So after you first started, like in the first couple years, do you have any interesting, anecdotes or stories about your experience with Scientology?
Oh yeah, because I trained first as a course supervisor, and I worked there to train other people myself. Course supervision is like you training to be a trainer. You train very intensively. Their training is very, very intensively. Like I say, it introduced me to a totally different approach from education. Our education system is full of force. You have to learn. You don't need to ask the reason.
Right, just learn it.
Just learn it.
Yeah.
You're forced to learn something.
Yeah,
it must be in there.
Christianity, just be Christian.
That's right. But then I came into Scientology. You have to understand, you see, so you can use it.
Depth behind it.
The
you were talking the other day about how in Africa Christianity was so enforced and Scientology was such a welcome.
It was a different perspective,
Yeah.
totally, for me,
Yeah.
because it came along. I had already studied communism, because in the struggle there, that was the thing we had to learn. All those volumes of Marx and so forth, we had to learn them. As opposed to capitalism, because you remember, colonialism and capitalism in Africa is the same thing.
Right.
Because it came together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the struggle against colonialism was the struggle against capitalism.
Yeah, and
So-
capitalism in the first world, it implies colonialism. Like the only reason anybody's walking around happy about capitalism is because of the impoverished nations that are the victim of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what it is. So communism was
Which
like
is why they're funding wars in the Congo.
was in everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why. That's exactly the point. So you find we had to learn communism was something else. It was a relief from what we were already sort of experiencing already. So communism was something different. It was talking democracy, but we know what was happening in Russia and Cuba and so forth.
Yeah.
We
Well, it wasn't Marx. It was Stalin.
It was
Lenin.
Stalin. Yeah. The people who implemented what was supposed to be communism. We know what happened in Africa after independence. So these guys came there with the whole knowledge of communism, but it was authoritarian. You see, but the philosophy itself was something you could hold in order not to be associated with colonialism, because colonialism, racism, and capitalism in Africa, they are all one. You see, so you don't even have an option to inspect. They are just evil things that you do not. So, and the education that we receive is from the West, because it was taught during those days. You didn't have to ask questions. You're supposed to take it as it is. So, and Christianity was part of it, because it was a compulsory subject at
The
school.
meek shall inherit the earth, so be meek. Yeah.
Yeah.
Blessed are the poor, so stay poor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blessed are those who don't,
Ask questions.
Don't ask questions.
Yeah.
You must don't question, because then you are questioning God.
Yeah.
You see, that sort of thing. So here is Scientology is talking about freedom. You're free to think. You must cause things, not to be effect.
Be at cause. Yeah.
Be at cause and not be the effect. So it was embraced.
Yeah.
It's not everyone. Scientology is very deep. Most people don't understand what it is.
Right.
But we also have media that gives the interpretation to society.
Yeah.
That says Scientology is Satanism. In Africa, anything that brings freedom and is arguing with Christianity is Satanism. They don't have to inspect it.
Yeah.
If they say it's Satanism, it means it's Satanism.
Yeah.
Even mysticism, which is based actually on the original African spirituality. It was taught away. Don't go into those things. They are primitive, they are satanic, you know,
Yeah.
and rituals.
Yeah.
You don't-
Which kind of brings it around to like us being here having this conversation right now, because those things, that mysticism that came from Africa became popular among us.
They were taken from
Europeans and United States
Yeah,
people to
that's right.
study and practice,
Yeah.
which is why you see a bunch of white people wearing Egyptian headdresses in a room.
Precisely.
And
Precisely.
so,
But
which
here-
moved me to come here and
Precisely.
help with.
Yeah,
your
because
guys.
people today don't want to associate themselves with. You talk about spirits, they say, "Ooh, you're talking Satanism now."
Yeah.
But you are practicing it. So you find a priest going home in the dark at night, going to talk to the ancestors, away from the vision of people. But he comes out wearing a white robe and saying, "Jesus, my Savior." So that ambiguity,
Interesting.
because Christianity forced them into their minds, those things are evil. But Christianity is the only, because it is a religion of the light. So you find that ambiguity. You find priests coming to us. If we do this thing, we are doing this thing, priests will come to us because they know there's power. But they don't want their followers to know that they are involved
Right.
in this thing. So that's the kind of ambiguity that we
Yeah.
got.
That's true.
Basically, the hypocrites.
Yeah.
Hypocrisy, yeah.
Yeah.
So when I got into Scientology, it gave me a totally it opened my world to inspect, because Scientology is not forced. Nobody says come here and become a Scientologist. It's a choice. It is a choice.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting.
You see, it is a choice. That's why you see I built my library out of those books, not only them, but everything else.
Yeah.
Everything else, because it gave me an open mind. And that's not what's happening in my family. I'm probably the only one, you know, who has an open mind. I know there's Scientology, I know there's Buddhism, I know there's this thing. Most people in Africa don't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are very few people who know they can choose to be anything, which is what I learned in Scientology. That's why you see me putting these things. When I hear all the stories about, I read, of course, stories when I first went in there. I remember my sister saying, "You're in Scientology. Do you know what's happening there? These people, they do this and I do this." I said, "Let me find out. Let those things happen. Let me see them." I never found anything of that sort. I've seen things happening in the newspaper. I know what's happening now. This is a totally new phenomenon.
With the Church of Scientology.
With the Church of Scientology.
For example.
Yeah.
That was what I was getting at.
I think it's a totally few. I saw it on the internet. I don't know the veracity of that story. There are people that I know I've seen there. It could have been happened. But if you listen to the lectures of Ron, he anticipated something like that happening when he leaves. Because in
like
Scientology,
extortion and that kind of thing?
yeah, Scientology is, organizations are governed by what we call policies, which are written in those books, green volumes, and which are written, all these things are written like policies, you know, the guidelines.
Yeah.
The black, the red volumes.
Right.
They are written in many other texts, which are guiding how activities should be run.
Yeah. They're sort of like the letters of St. Paul
Exactly.
of Scientology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how organizations. I trained in that level of running when I opened my center. I went there for training, how to run it, how to bring people in, and how people should know how this thing is run for its success.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no secrecy, an oath to any secrecy or anything
Right.
like that. No.
Huh.
It's
So what are the things when you mention, just for people who aren't really keeping track, what are the recent developments that you're not sure about the veracity of?
Well, because I have not seen it, I have not been to the orgs since I read those things.
Right.
And those things happened in a higher organization which is called the Sea Org.
Which things?
For instance, that Miscavige has totally taken the organization to the other direction than what Ron was saying. I know that they say policy was violated. Some people were kept in some secret cells. You know, those are the kind of things that we read in the internet. But
like metaphorical cells, like you're not allowed to talk outside of your cell, or physical
yeah,
cells.
people were regarded as having violated policy, and they get detained.
Oh, I see.
In some spaces, and I don't know.
Oh, they get put away like
they
in
get put
some
away,
kind of Scientology prison.
and they are not allowed to go out because they will talk, and they're kept there and stuff like that. Those are things that we saw on the internet, but I don't know how true those things are. Yeah. I know that people who come from Johannesburg, they say, yeah, Scientology is dead. I don't know about that. But all I know is that all my life, there were always negative stories about Scientology in the media.
Right. Yeah, and then some of them are perpetuated by other powers like Christianity, and then others might be true, so it's kind of hard to...
The arch enemy of Scientology, I suppose, is psychiatry.
Oh, right.
How come? The psychiatric institution. Well, I don't know. If you look at Ron's introduction to Scientology, he talks about that, because he says they perceived Scientology as a sort of acting in their sphere.
A competition.
A competition. So they wanted to shut Scientology down. That was his view. And as a result, he founded an organization called Citizen Commission for Human Rights in 1960, I think. In 1974.
That was before they were prescribing pills for everything, too.
Huh?
That was before psychiatry was prescribing medication for everything.
Yes, that's right. I know. Well, I've seen that. I mean, I know that kids here in 94, 95, 96, in the 90s were prescribed Ritalin for attention deficit disorder.
Yeah.
You know, that's
rather than like maybe take a break from the TV. Just keep watching TV and take these pills.
Yeah. And I know that many people get taken away from their families under the pretext they've lost their minds, and they get locked up into mental institutions, and they get pumped with those drugs. The idea being to create state patients, in other words, people who are in the psychiatry, because those drugs are paid for by these taxes. You see?
Yeah, so it's the pharmaceutical industry.
And then creating more mad people so that the state can provide the finances for those drugs.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I know, that psychiatry was the arch enemy of Scientology. They were attacking, they wanted to crush. So Scientology in 1984 formed Citizen Commission for Human Rights and started attacking Scientology, not moving from offensive to attacking, literally attacking to destroy psychiatry. So those two groups always were at loggerheads. So I suppose that most of the negative publicity of Scientology came from there.
Interesting.
Yeah. But my experience in Scientology has nothing to do with all those things that are being said. I was in Scientology for 30 years until I decided to be here on my own. I've used Scientology to help people who struggle in studying, and I know that people improve. I've gone to processes like I've trained there as a trainer, which is a course supervisor, to a very higher level. I've held executive posts. I've been an executive in Scientology. I haven't seen those things. It's like if I start doing mysticism today, then people come along and say, those people, they eat people. They keep skulls in there and so forth. I heard people eat the placentas of people. I mean, those kind of ludicrous claims.
Well, if you have consent, I figure.
So...
It's like an omelet, basically.
But I was in the walk and I was...
Same stuff.
So if you have lived, if you have served in an organization from the bottom up to the top, and you haven't experienced those things, and you wonder.
Interesting.
I've never been to the Sea Org. I don't know exactly.
Right.
Because most of these things that we see
that we
today,
hear about from the Sea Org.
Yeah, they happened from the Sea Org.
Interesting. So the Church of Scientology, the org, is a bit like a franchise where you can open up a
Your
Church of
own.
Scientology without ever actually getting involved with the Sea Org and learn the Scientology methods.
Sea Org is like...
But the problems are in the Sea Org,
yeah.
if there are problems.
Yeah, if there are problems. Yeah, Sea Org is a permanent organization. It's the one that manages...
We come back.
Scientology. Yeah, that's right.
So they manage the
entire,
central org.
They keep coordination. Not that they tell the central organizations what to do. No.
Yeah.
You get a license, I get a license here. Whatever I do here, I do it in coordination with others. Yeah. There are management fees, of course, because the material that you get here to use for the org, it gets printed in Denmark, I think, or in LA. There's management headquarters in LA, in Florida, in all those places.
Yeah.
So those are the guys that produce. The material gets printed in Denmark, and it gets distributed. So I believe that the management fees are for taking care of postage, printing, to make sure that you run.
I've heard about some, just from Kay in the previous interview, about his wife having to pay just these incredible amounts of money to get to OT5.
Oh yeah. When it comes to auditing, people, it's not the first time I hear that. I met a German guy here when I was working or building radio stations. He delivered some equipment for radio, and we were talking, and I don't know what came, but he discovered I was a Scientologist, and he says, "Ooh, those people, I don't want to see them." I said, "What happened?" He said to me, "You know those people, when I left, they came to my house and searched and took all my books, and and they wanted to sue me for this." And I said, "Why?" I was not interested anymore. I was doing something else. I heard those kind of stories. I don't know how true. So there are stories like that, where people go into auditing, and they pay all that money, and they keep going up.
Oh, okay. So that's the difference. If somebody says, "I want to be audited," then they have to pay the money to get to the OT levels. But you went in and said, "I want to be trained."
I wanted to understand what Scientology was,
right.
how it works, and so I went inside.
Yeah.
And I operated inside.
Yeah, Gordon said, "I want to be an auditor." So he said he never paid a cent, but he was auditing people.
He was staff. Yes, if you join a staff, you don't pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I did most of the training, I never paid.
Yeah.
But if you break the contract, for instance, you go in contracts, you can sign a 5-year contract. If you leave before the contract expires, then you pay back the training that you received up to the point where you left.
You pay it back in what form?
In monetary form.
Oh, okay.
In other words, you say, "I'm going to be in here for 5 years," and then in 2 years you decide to leave.
After having gotten the training.
After having got the training.
See.
Then that training, they call it the freeloader bill. The freeloader, in other words, you have been training for free without paying. Now you've broken the contract, so you pay back what you have been trained on. Yeah, that's what they call. But if you finish your contract, you can leave and go do other things. You can come back and sign a contract again. Every person who is there is on a contract. And then when you are in contract, they say you are full-time. That's how it works. So I suspect that maybe people don't understand that sometimes, because maybe life gets tougher when you are in there. There's no pay. You are working there.
Yeah, if you're full-time for 5 years, you're not earning money. So you have to already have
Yeah,
money.
it gets tough, and then you go look for employment, and I have broken the contract also myself from time to time. But I did pay the freeloader. But you have to understand, because those things are all written.
Yeah.
Yeah, you learn them. Okay, I'm breaking, I'm going to pay the freeloader. And then they don't force you. The only time you want to go back, they then invoke the freeloader. In other words, you can't start a new service after having broken the contract before. You know, when you come back, you need to pay the freeloader before you can be accepted again.
I see.
Yeah, but there is no hassle about it.
Okay.
I never experienced any hassles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Even now, I'm in communication with people who know me, who were there. Others have left. Some people stay there for life.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have a support system, most of those guys have got companies. They have businesses they run. They're run by families, so they support them while they support the family.
Yeah.
But if you don't have it, it gets tough.
Now, the other day when we were upstairs talking about the LBRP, the pentagram, the hexagram,
Yeah.
and you were saying that from your background in Scientology that a lot of these things were...
For instance, we have the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Oh, the bridge to total freedom.
Yeah. You see?
So this is like the tree of life.
This is like the tree of life. If you look at it from the bottom here, you see, this part is training. This is training. You're actually sitting and reading books, and you are studying this way. This is processing, which is auditing.
You do both at once.
No,
Oh, okay.
you don't necessarily. You can do both at once, but you can move this way and then come this way.
Yeah.
But Ron himself emphasizes you need to have knowledge
Right.
to know what is happening here.
I see.
So what people are interested in is to see themselves achieving clear
Right.
because of what the book says about clear, what a clear is like. You know, that sort of life, and what an OT has, what capabilities an OT and a clear has. So they find studying is hectic. So they come this side because here you're not studying, you're being audited.
Right.
Yeah. So they move and they use money, they pay. They pay. For instance, you pay in hours. They tell you to get clear, they calculate it and say you need so many hours to train. This is how much it's going to cost you. So people who have money will just calculate and say, if it's that much hours and this is so much, they just pay all that money. Okay? And then they move. But it's a lot of work to get clear.
Yeah.
For you to get audited, because it means you have to attend. You have appointments with the auditor.
You have to be on time.
You have to be on time.
Yeah.
You have to finish on time. You have to live a particular lifestyle in terms of diet, in terms of everything, sleep, and so forth, and rest.
Present time problems.
Present time problems. You have to deal with them to move up here. So I suspect that people pay, and when they are here, they are finished, they pay up to go to the top. And it's not an easy, and you find they are struggling because the relative information is not there.
Right. Oh, they don't know it. They're
Because
just
they
trying
have to
pay
study.
pay to go up.
Yeah, to go up. Which
So
is
people who
which
are
is like
billionaires can do it easily, but people who are 100,000aires find themselves broke,
that's right.
basically, and borrowing money from the bank to pay.
To pay, yeah, which is exactly what I think happened to Fabio's wife, because she's here, she just pays money.
Yeah.
She gets money from her mother. She sells property. She's a doctor. She sells the practice, sells everything, and she goes. And now, when you go higher, because it's only you can train in class 4 orgs here. You can train up to clear, but from here going OT, some class 4 organizations can't do it. So you find that people have to go to Australia, they have to go to the USA.
Clearwater.
Yeah, they have to go to Florida, they have to go to they have to go to UK, you know, at St. Hill and stuff like that. And that compounds the expense, because what you have paid,
Oh, yeah. You also have to...
and then you have
fly
living
there
expenses, they're flying there and taking
quitting
care
your
of
job
yourself.
so you can fly.
Yeah, accommodation.
Yeah.
That will suck you out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you look here, we have this situation of the individual who is a space, energy production unit, and who is capable of controlling matter and controlling his environment. And if we treat this individual directly, since that is the individual we find immediately, and so does he discover that he is immortal.
Oh, that is the golden dawn.
That is the problem.
The golden realization.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Wow. I think later when we take the photo with Hubbard, we should have that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's what it is. So
how interesting. So, okay, there was a center here, and now there's not. How did that come about?
Well, I was running a center, and
It was you were running it, but that wasn't the one you joined.
Sorry?
You joined a center in Johannesburg?
No, in Bulawayo in 1980.
And then you opened the center here.
Yeah, and then I came down here, and then I opened this center. I lived in Joburg, then came down here to the university, and then that's how I came to this province. Otherwise, I was in Joburg.
Okay.
So I came to the university, and then I worked at university, and then I met my wife there. She was a lecturer there in law, and then we decided to settle. She comes from Pretoria also. Yeah, then we decided to settle. So when we bought this place, then I decided to open the center.
This was the center?
This whole building.
Oh,
that way was
and now
the
it's
center.
now it's a different place.
Where we have an altar was the course room.
Oh wow! Okay, so we're talking about the Gnostic Church of the Black Sun Kuho-Yu, where that is now used to be the Scientology Center.
Where it was the course room. Yeah.
The coast room?
The coast room is where the training was taken.
Oh wow! Yeah. What a trip! So there's kind of a lineage of that room.
That's right.
What a trip! So what would you say? Is there what connections are there between what's going on in that room now and what was going on before?
No connection at all.
No connection at all.
No, there's no connection. What happened is that at the time I wanted to run the center, but my life changed.
Right.
So when it changed, I then withdrew. Which means I surrendered the license because
and paid the fee, or
no, you pay the fee before you get the license.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so before I opened, I had already paid all the fees and the material that is required to start a center. Then I ran the center, but I also didn't have a lot of people coming because the place is outside town.
Right.
Yeah, in order for you to be successful in Scientology, you need the traffic of people.
Oh, I see.
Passing.
Oh, walking by. That makes sense. There's a lot
people
of places back home where
people who
foot
look.
traffic.
Yeah, people who look and say,
"What's that?
What's that?" And they come in and ask, and then you introduce them.
Yeah.
You have a thing. You have a TV, and you're running introduction programs, and people watch there, and they identify that with the conditions they want to handle, and they come in.
Wow.
You see, that's how it... So
I guess looking at this about the realization of the immortal self maybe has a little bit to do with what Kay is doing in there.
Yeah, of course. But you see what Kay is doing. This is what I know from birth.
What is that?
African spirituality. This is what I know.
Yeah.
So when he was doing it, it was a natural thing. I said, but this is the kind of thing. But, there's a traditional way of doing it. There is this way of approach. This is modernizing it.
Right.
Yeah, because if you go to and see a shaman, find he's wearing bones and skins and everything, he's got all the herbs, and it's scary.
Right.
Yeah. But
he's making it accessible.
Yeah, very accessible, and you have to go through a very excruciating training, which is said to be only for people who have a calling.
And that was what he went through with his mother when he was young.
Yeah. That sort of thing. But this is like straightforward. In other words, the movement of this African spirituality from Africa to Europe and back is a very important step, because then Europeans took it and they included their own way of doing it.
Right.
With the matching with the development.
The Christianity and the Greek gods and
everything.
Tarot cards.
Yeah, because I went to Japan and I saw those altars and I saw the shrines. Yet they were doing exactly the same thing.
The Buddhist shrines?
Yes. Yeah, I saw the shrines in the mountains, in the villages. Yeah, where people were traveling from one province to another before there was transport. But in the middle of the mountains, in those paths, they would put a shrine. So that when you're passing and you think you have difficulties in your journey, you talk to your spirits there and to open the way.
The Shinto,
So I saw those shrines. They are exactly the same as what we were doing, the rituals that we do in life. I went into a Buddhist monastery. You go into the gate, you wash your feet, you walk, and you pay respect to the people who died in wars, people who died natural death because of age, to the animals, and you go around the shrine respecting all those spirits, and finally you go to the main entrance and inside where you go and chant. So that is familiar.
Wow.
That is familiar.
Yeah.
That's very familiar. It's something that is natural with us, because that's how many rituals that we do here are not like, what is this? It's something that we know. But now we have an altar. So it has sort of moved from where it was.
But yeah, you were talking about
I know.
language.
The language,
all the way up to Kenya, all the words being familiar.
Very familiar.
Yeah.
You go to Congo, they still use most of the things that most of the words that we use here.
Yeah.
You know, I traveled to the east of Zambia, and I found a book on the shelves in a bookshop, and it was written Umlandu Wababemba, which means the history of the Bemba people. But it is written exactly the same way we write, because Umlandu is history in Zulu here.
Huh.
We read it exactly like that, and it's written, and I could read it, and I asked, you sell Zulu books here? They say, no, we don't. Where do you see it? I said, that's Zulu. He says, no, that's not Zulu. The shop attendant said, no, that's not Zulu, that's Bemba. I said, is that Bemba? What is Bemba? He says, yeah, that's Bemba. I said, but that reads like Zulu. How do you pronounce it? He read it like that, Umlandu Wababemba. And I sat there and said, Africa is not researched.
Yeah.
How can I travel 5,000 kilometers away over countries and have people speaking exactly like I speak? And those people are found in Congo.
Yeah.
They are also found in, and you go to Tanzania, the same. So there is a lot in Africa which has been hidden away as a result of colonialism.
Yeah.
Because colonialism was sort of like predicated on divide and rule.
Right.
So
And the assumption that civilization comes from Europe.
from Europe. So that alone tells that amongst ourselves as Africans, we don't know each other.
Yeah.
But when we meet in different places and people start doing their cultural things, you realize, how come? Connection.
Kay was talking about once the Gnostic Church of the Black Sun Kuhoyu gets large enough and starts accumulating wealth, that we'd be able to fund some of this research that needs to be done about the civilizations that are older than Egypt and older than Babylon and older than Sumer, etc.
That is intention.
Yeah.
Look, I was showing you this book. This book is taught in high schools in America.
World history.
Yes.
It goes back as far as Egypt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not taught here
Yeah.
in Africa. And I bought this book in the USA. And I brought it
That's
here.
not taught in Africa?
No. There is no such a book here in Africa. And I brought it here. And when I went through it, I was amazed. Because of our education, we are only taught in the country. We're not taught about the next country,
Divide and conquer.
until at the end of the colonialism. In those countries that attained independence, some of them tried to do their education curriculum to include Africa. So you find most people in Southern Africa don't know about the North Africa. Most people don't know about Botswana, don't know about Mozambique. They don't know about neighboring countries. The education is focused on, except schools are, our education is divided. White people have their own schools. They get a broader curriculum. They know the world much better than Africans, in whose schools they are not taught about the neighboring countries. They are not taught selective subjects. They are not taught history, very little geography. They are only taught, many other things other than those that teach them about the world. But you come here, so constantly we have been told civilization was brought by Europeans. Africa had no civilizations. But this book tells us about African civilizations dating back to 2,000 years before Christ. Here. And these civilizations are here.
In
the continent of Africa, right where the people from the south migrated from when they came down south. They migrated from those places. So those civilizations were where their ancestors. They were cities. They were interacting with the Asians, with the Romans, with the Greeks. They were coming to trade together. International trade was happening. If you look at the continent, as you can see from the south, right up to Tanzania, there was a tribe, and then going straight west towards Congo and straight down to the south. So there was a triangle, which was a movement of goods and people. And it is traceable in these books, and also the other book which I bought, written from America, which is African Civilizations, which is written, but Africans themselves. You see?
By John G. Jackson.
Yeah. So this knowledge, these people came here, did some research, and found those things. But
published it.
And that knowledge,
never made it down here.
Never been here.
Yeah.
So if you have not traveled, you can go through the school up to university. You'll never know.
It's like when I brought the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Coming Forth by Day, the 2 copies down here with the copies of the actual old hieroglyphs and the translations underneath, and Kay was saying, we can't get this here.
Yeah. So, because we were told books like that. Remember, he asked you to bring some book. When we ordered, we were told in LA, they said, no, books like that are not allowed to be in Africa. We don't send those books.
There's actually a law.
There is a law in America.
A law in America saying those books shouldn't go to Africa?
Yeah. Certain books can never be in Africa. They're not allowed to be here because that knowledge is not supposed to reach here. And this is exactly what we are dealing with. We have Christianity. People believe today the only religion on earth is Christianity. Now, when you do Scientology, you have such forces saying, dangerous. Those people are Satanists. You see?
Yeah.
We do what we are doing now. Spirituality is Satanist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the kind of thing we are dealing with. And it's only the enlightened or those who have access, like ourselves. You have come here, you've brought us knowledge, we are interchanging, then we become more enlightened. But the entire Africa needs a revolution.
Yeah.
In terms of knowledge. To know the truth, to know exactly that. No. There is no discrimination in knowledge. There is knowledge on earth. But if you hide knowledge from one section of one part of the world and you keep it on the other part of the world, you'll obviously see...
You're intentionally creating a class structure, artificially, for economic motivations.
Yeah.
Greed.
Which is what racism...
Which is a deadly sin, Christians.
Yes. Which is a
Hello.
deadly sin, Christian. But they pioneered that.
Yeah.
Christianity pioneered that. I can bravely say it. They pioneered that.
Yeah.
Because even racism, as it started to... You read the history in America, you see that the Irish were the first slaves. And they were treated exactly the same way Africans are treated today. And then Africans arrived, then the Irish became white, and then Africans became the slaves. Race, inferiority and superiority was not there at the beginning of slavery.
That was something the British picked up from the Romans.
Yes, and then they picked it up and then they started, because people were asking questions. I mean, there are groups like the Quakers who were questioning the establishment of racism, and those guys who were keeping slaves had to find a reason, a justification, and they said, no, these people can be enslaved because they are inferior to white people. And then the question was, what is inferior? They said, no, it's the blackness of the skin, which also signifies the level of knowledge and research at the time.
Very, not at all.
Yeah, but you see how damaging that has gone through centuries. And here people believe that this skin has a problem. And as a result, they are leaching. They are bleaching. You see, they're bleaching in order to look like you. And so it's the mind. But this is not what is wrong with racism. What is wrong with racism in Africa is that it was an economic thing. You see, because when they came, they found there's an industry, which is agriculture. It was going. And they came and established, before they really got their roots in, they were depending on this industry. Everyone was eating the food. Everything, meat, was depending on this industry which was existing. But once they were established after the conquering, they could not compete. You see? They couldn't compete, they couldn't enter, because this was well established. Then they said, pass the law, prevent these guys from producing, make them come and work here and make us produce, because we can't compete with them. And then the laws were passed, just like the Dred Scott, the separate but equal,
Right.
Those years. So this is exactly how it happened. And then it tipped the scale. These people were very wealthy in their own land. These were arriving to settle, were poor, and the laws were used to push them down, destroy everything that they had physically. I mean, using the army, the police, destroying that and making sure they are poor and they come and beg for work. Today, if you come here, you look around, you see poor settlements. And if you read the sociology book, any ordinary sociology book, it will tell you a story. Tell you, these people, like this, they are uncivilized. This is why they live like this. But it was a creation. You see, it was a creation. It's like the Romans going into England in 55 BC. They did exactly the same. They destroyed, took over, and they became and the British. But when they revolted, so this is the same thing that happens. But Christianity says, if you see a man successful, they mustn't wish to be like him, because your kingdom is in heaven. But while they were literally destroying, I lived during those days, and I saw it, because it continued from 1700 to 1970, where a man builds like this. 3 o'clock in the morning, you see caterpillars coming, walking over this thing. Destroying. Bulldozers, yes. Coming, destroying all this thing, and then police are all over there, taking people, throwing them into a van and driving 300 kilometers into the wilderness and say, you live here now. If you build there and you build like this, they come again. Simply because they said the white man is not supposed to work in the sun. You see, you are supposed to go there and beg for work. And that's the culture which is here today. Africans know that I must go and beg for work. And if you ask my kids, they say, because we are inferior. And you ask, you say, no, but it wasn't always like this. They say, but how come no white people come and look for work from you? You are the ones who go to them. But it's over generations of years creating that sort of thing. And then the authors putting the philosophy down and teaching it to children. It's the same thing with the spirituality. We're now getting it. I don't know. He spoke to you maybe. How many friends asked when they saw him posting all those things? They say, are you running some organization for some white person somewhere?
Right. Yeah, they seem either like, is he the boss? Is he the real guy behind this?
Yeah. Because they don't believe
that I would come.
You'd ever come with an idea like that. You can't come with an idea unless there's so this is the kind of thing. So you were asking me about Scientology. Scientology teaches totally against that. Because I've been there over years, and I know I am myself now. I can be able to stand on myself with my confidence. I can stand and defend the position. I've done research on racism. It's not about white and black. It's about vested interests. You see? But people hate each other. You see? People rip each other. because
it's a self-fulfilling cycle then, because you can say, oh, well, yeah, but someone of this race killed my such and such, and that's why I killed their such and such.
That's
it goes back and forth like Israel and Palestine, but they weren't even enemies 100 years ago.
And precisely that point.
And the Amorc probably doesn't mention it, but the tradition behind Christian Rosenkreuz was, he was a monk up in present-day Germany, and there wasn't much going on, and so he traveled down to Damascus, took on the name Christian of the Rosy Cross, traveled across North Africa, met all these great teachers, learned all this great stuff, and then eventually went back up to Germany, and since they were very oppressive up there and they didn't want anything but the church going on, he had to initiate people in secret, and thus the Western esoteric movement, the Rosicrucian order. And that's the secret history there, which is probably one of the reasons it's oppressed, is because it claims that civilization comes from Africa, which it does, as we know. In 1000 AD, you could write a check in Saudi Arabia and cash it in Spain and anywhere along Africa. And they didn't even have mercantilism yet. They were still in the feudal system, and hence the whole paranoia about certain people coming up from Africa and up from Spain being the bankers, because everybody knew about banking down here.
Yeah. So I mean, I had to study Scientology to be open-minded.
Yeah.
For me, Scientology is very helpful. It's a philosophy that people need to know.
Yeah.
Because it teaches about you.
Yeah.
And you as a spirit, that you are immortal. Christianity teaches you.
I was surprised to see that, because my old teacher Gordon, he always would talk about not looking for spirit in matter and things like that. But the last line here, it says that the spirit can be saved, and that the spirit alone may save or heal the body.
Yes,
that's interesting. He was not into healing the body.
Yeah, that's the essence of Scientology.
Yeah. Well, I guess he thought that was missing the point, because the order we came from, they were all about healing bodies and going to hospitals and putting
but a lot of criticism that I've seen about Scientology is people who have not really gone deeper into the literature.
Yeah, they don't even look at it at all. They just see, those people are brainwashed. What are they doing?
Yeah, that's right.
Haven't they heard? Didn't they watch? What was that documentary? Going Clear.
I haven't seen it myself, but I've been in Scientology for 30 years.
Yeah.
And I was focused on reading these books, and they formed. I had to create a library, because I realized that knowledge is manipulated.
Yeah.
You get what people want you to get. Yeah. If I hadn't traveled to that extent, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I
wouldn't know any of this. I wouldn't know about this whole background or this whole place right here.
Yeah, exactly.
If I hadn't traveled.
And I don't think I'll be friendly to you, because I'll be full of ideas that were put in me.
Right.
I had to travel.
Yeah.
With the anger. Fighting for colonialism, you're told, these people.
Yeah.
And you walk around and see, but this guy bleeds. He feels pain too.
Yeah.
And you talk to this guy, he has no clue what you're talking about.
Right.
Which means
he
also suffers the same effect.
Yeah.
Like me.
Yeah.
So there is a select few on earth. People who manipulate knowledge, manipulate people, and put belief systems in our heads. You have to find your own path.
Yeah.
Which is what we are doing.
Yeah, I run into a lot of willful ignorance and anti-intellectualism where I come from in California.
Yeah. So I'm happy you are here.
Thank you so much.
I've had so many friends coming from Europe,
Yeah.
professors and so forth. This house has seen so many, because in here, cultural people always ask, these white people must be owning these guys, owning these properties. These guys.
Do you manage this for the
how would they
Africana?
how would they manage these guys? And they see all the friends who come here, they think. Sometimes they ask, but we see a lot of white people coming in and out. They say, no, my friends. Oh, your friends? Oh, okay. They want
it's people look at us really strange when Kay comes over, but the people who work at the hotel that I'm at have been kind of like approvingly noticing, when he comes to pick me up now, after he went in and told the owners, and the owners apparently were just stunned. They didn't know what to do, because he was telling them, are we still under apartheid? What's going on? Why didn't you tell me that he couldn't have visitors? I would have checked him into a different hotel. I'm the one who checked him in. I'm going to visit him, and they were like, you can visit him. He's like, then why did you tell me I couldn't? Why did you send them over to tell me I couldn't visit him? They thought, they see the three of us go into the room together. Immediately, someone knocking on the door. No visitors. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, because if Africans are walking in where you live, it means they're going to rob you there. You see,
yeah, or drugs or whatever. Yeah,
especially you come from America. Yeah, could be maybe they're selling you drugs or they're going to rob you there.
Yeah,
so no
Everyone I talked to in America when I said I was going to South Africa, they're like, "Oh, be careful! Don't let anyone know that you have money. Like, you know, they kill people just for living nice down there. You know."
Yeah. So you see, this discussion is so important because these are the perceptions. These are the things that are put into people's minds.
Yeah.
And then people become something else. So the world is ripped apart by people who are really intent on ripping the world by putting ideas. And it's controlled through systems like education, churches, and so forth. And people just take, and they end up something they don't know. Once it's in you, once you have the knowledge, you think that's the way the world is. You don't know there's something else.
Yeah,
you see. So that's the point. Today I don't see you as a white person. 30 years of studying Scientology taught me that, because I was with white people all over. First I walked in, I was like...
tense.
I was very tense.
Yeah.
And those people, because they were Scientologists already, they already had cleared off their... they were normal. And they taught me to be normal too.
Yeah.
I became normal and when my wife came and it was all Scientologists coming here, sleeping here, spending some months, building the center here, going and coming and helping, and my children became, and I brought this knowledge so that they also grow and know this is the world.
Yeah,
the world
so they can start out with the knowledge.
Yeah, the world is diverse.
Yeah.
And all the nonsense you hear is coming from some very small group of people who are benefiting from it.
Yeah. Wow.
You see.
Excellent work, I have to say.
Thank you.
Any closing thoughts or anything you want to mention before we end the interview?
Well, I think I'm happy that the knowledge of African spirituality is coming back.
Yeah.
And we must thank those guys, of course, who have developed it for all these centuries, because they've written books, experiences, and so forth. So it is helpful.
Yeah.
But beside, I think it's defeating the ends of those who want to create a different society, because we are creating networks.
Yeah.
We are becoming a family, so we're becoming even more stronger.
Yeah.
By connecting. So naturally, I think racism will die a natural death.
Yeah, I think they call that a conspiracy. we're conspiring here. Conspiracy to overthrow Western civilization.
Western civilization and capitalism. Those are very narrow interests.
Yes.
So they will die.
Yeah.
A natural death.
Yeah.
They will die. Because as people become more aware and so forth, they will just disappear.
Yeah. Not soon enough.
Yeah. Not soon enough, of course, but they must.
Thank you very much for
it's a pleasure.
Being our guest on the Esoterinerd podcast today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much to you. Thank to you.
Thank you, Buzani, for being our guest on the Esoterinerd podcast tonight. Special thanks to Susumu Ueda and his father and the other monks at Jofukuin on Mount Koyasan for the music you're hearing right now. Special thanks to identical twins Camille and Kennerly for the harp transition into and out of the interview itself. Special thanks to Jean-Michel Jarre for the music that played in the background during the Transformations and Footnotes segment. And most importantly, thank you to you, the Esoterinerd, listening to this podcast. May you vibrate at tone 3.5 or higher. Until next time. Good night.